All right, welcome back to Rooted at Badger Rock's virtual garden series. I'm Forrest Smart. I'll be doing today's garden workshop. The topic for today is harvesting, processing, and preserving cherries today. So our main star today is our tart cherry tree. There is tart cherries, and then there's also sweet cherries. From what I know, I'm pretty sure sweet cherries tend to fruit a little bit earlier. So we're at about the end of June. Tart cherries are just coming in now. They're just getting perfectly ripe right now. So we want to start harvesting them so we can preserve them, keep them for longer lasting, and then as well as enjoy right now. So first thing we're going to look at is our tree. Is we want to find the best berries to harvest. For these ones, they're going to start out kind of greenish yellow, but we want the ones that are nice and deep red. The redder, the better. The redder, the sweeter. Oh no, the sweeter as well. And so for harvesting cherries, you can pick them either one at a time. And if you're going to eat them right now, the best way you can just pick them is to pull right from the berry. A lot of times, the stem will just come right off. And then we can just put this in our big pile of cherries as well. If we're trying to preserve the cherries for a little bit longer, and we're not going to use them right away in whatever recipe we're making, then maybe we might want to actually just pick the stem off with it. So that way it doesn't open up at the top of the cherry, and it'll just last a little bit longer while it's still fresh. And then as for the cherry tree, we also, I guess another option is, hopefully, let's see if we can find a good one. If we're just going to be using them right away, if we pull them, oh, that one did do it. Maybe this pit actually just comes right out, so just like that. So then this is ready to go, has no pit. You can just eat it too if you want, right off the bat.
How is it?
A little tart, but it's delicious.
Yeah. These cherry trees are no joke sour.
Super sour. But yeah, so just like any fruit that has a pit in it, we call that a stone fruit. So these are just another example of that. So just when you make sure when you're eating cherries, you just want to remove the stem first thing so you don't actually bite into it, hurt your teeth or anything like that. And then as for the rest of our tree, a lot of times you want to prune your tree as well. And this will usually be done in like the late winter, early springtime. And that's just open your tree up a little bit more, take some branches away, maybe take out any dead branches that might be growing up, as well as opening it up to create more airflow. And then a lot of times we'll usually try to top off the top a little bit so that it doesn't grow super high. We want it to kind of bush out a little bit. When it does that, then it allows more sunlight to hit the fruit, and it allows the fruit to ripen a little bit quicker, and which is what we want. We want them to be all ripening at around the same time, so then we can harvest it all at the same time as well. And again, that just kind of helps force some of the energy into the fruit that we want, creating a little bit more quicker ripening.
And for us short people, it always also keeps the cherries where we can reach them a little
Exactly.
easier.
Yep. So I mean, the cherries on the top, even on this taller tree, they're gonna ripen first just because they're exposed to the sunlight earlier on. And although these might be a little bit hard, you can always get a step stool, a ladder. I don't know. You can always put someone on your shoulders to go get more of them up there. So I mean, it just all depends. But yeah, typically the ones at the top are going to be the more riper ones earlier on. So don't forget about them. Otherwise, the birds will get to them. Again, birds are always a problem for most fruits, most berries especially. So there is the option of maybe if you're starting out with your cherry trees, maybe you can get some bird netting as well to put around them so that it at least tries to save some of them before they get all taken by the birds, if you don't get out to them quick enough. But yeah, that's mostly about it for harvesting. Very easy, very simple. Nothing too fancy. I'm getting rained on. Again, you can pick them off one by one. A lot of times there'll be clusters, two of them as well. Then you can just pick a whole cluster or a couple of them. It'll come off a little bit easier then. And then, yeah, once you have your fill, once you have all the cherries you need, now it's time to go start processing them. And basically, the processing is just kind of rinsing them off and then taking the pits out. But we will show you that in our next segment once we move into the kitchen real quick. All right, and we're back. We're back here in the kitchen. We're going to go over now how to preserve our cherries. We're going to make some jam with that. And then with our jam as well, we can just eat it right after we make it. But if you want to preserve it for a little bit longer, we're going to try to do canning as well. And then another method for preserving our cherries is just to freeze them, which is very simple. We're just going to be pitting the cherries, just placing them on a tray, and then just putting them into the freezer. Once they freeze, then you can maybe put them in a bag, but you just don't want them to be a big clump if you put them into the freezer then. So we'll go over pitting cherries next, processing them. So there's a couple different methods for pitting cherries. One is just using your hands. Pretty easy. It's free of charge. Doesn't cost anything. But all we're going to do is just squeeze our cherries until our pits come out. There's our pit. Here's our cherry. And then let's pop this in here. We'll put it aside. But yeah, this is just the easiest, simple way of getting their cherries pitted. Again, doesn't cost anything. Don't need no tools but your hands. The only problem is it just takes a little while, and your fingers are going to get really red, really messy, really quick if you're doing it this way. But if you like being a little bit more hands-on and just like, using your hands a little bit more, I'd say go for it. Just using your fingers. But for time's sake, we'll also show you a couple different methods. If you have some time to get a tool or go online, look for a cherry pitter. We have a couple of different examples of them. This one's a single cherry pitter. Although for our tart cherries, they're a little bit small. And so these are a bigger hole, and I think they're meant more for sweet cherries with these ones. The sweet cherries are a little bit bigger. But otherwise, all you do is just put a cherry in here, press this little lever down, and it should pit the cherry. And then it would just normally fall out, but again, because they're so small, they kind of get stuck in the hole. So we're not going to use this one today. Another one, trying to make it a little faster, is this one, where you can put 6 cherries in at a time. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then again, it's got 6 prongs right here. You get 6 cherries out at once. Let me just pop those in here. But I think a couple of pits kind of got in here, so we'll just make sure those don't stay in our batch so they don't go into our jam.
My mom always said, you know it's homemade if you find at least one pit.
Yep. Oh, there we go. That's good. That's definitely how it usually goes.
Yeah.
Oh, there would have been one right there.
Yep. There was your homemade.
Yep. And then our last pitting option that we have here currently at Badger Rock is this one. This one seems to be working the best, the most efficient. This one you can load up a handful at a time in this top section. And then once they go into here, you just push this lever down, it'll pit it, and then it just drops it right into the bowl over here. And all the pits just end up into this little container right here. And again, just very efficient, just going one at a time.
Some of you all might know those old school metal ones too that have like a crank.
Mm-hmm.
You can put on your countertop. Sometimes you can find those at garage sales or, estate sales for inexpensively. It's another option.
Yeah. So yeah, again, you can always use your hands. Nothing wrong with that, but this just helps speed up the process a little bit. And this one works very well, so I would actually recommend this one. Oh, we get a couple going in there.
And I think this was like $20.
$20, not bad at all. Definitely saves time and saves your fingers from getting super red. This is all good. Again, we're making some cherry jam today, so we're just making sure all of them are pitted. We're going to use about a pound of cherries in our recipe. Almost done. Oh, there we go. One more. There we go. Almost done. Just just like that. Very efficient, very quick, not nearly as messy. Still got some red hands, but not nearly as bad. Now we got a pound of pitted cherries right here, ready to go, ready to be made into our jam. All right, so now that we have them processed, ready to go, again, if these were just being frozen, we just lay them out on our tray over here, and then just pop this into the freezer. Once they're hardened and freeze, then you can pop into a bag more, save some space as well. But since we're going to be making cherry jam, we're going to use these right away. For cherry jam too, just like I said, if you're freezing them, you can use frozen cherries as well. There just might be a little bit more moisture in them, so you might have to cook them a little longer to get them to the right consistency, right thickness. But since we're using fresh berries, it won't be as much of a deal dealing with all that moisture. So we're just going to get a nice medium saucepan. Gonna pop our cherries in there. And then I'm just going to go over the ingredients. We're going to pop these on the stove right away. But the other ingredients we'll be adding to this is going to be the juice of 1 lemon. You don't need the juice, or you don't need lemon juice, but some people like it to help offset the amount of sugar you're going to throw in, kind of add a little bit more tartness or acidity back into the recipe. And then that's about it. Just this more extra flavor too, and it helps preserve it just a little bit as well, I believe. So we do use juice of 1 lemon, and then we're going to use 1.25 cups of sugar once we start adding them into the recipe, which again seems like a lot, but we're adding a little bit more lemon juice, and the tart cherries are just going to kind of even out that sugariness to it. So now that we got our cherries in our pot, we're just going to take these over to the stove. Turn the stove on. We're going to do about medium heat on this. Start getting them to break down a little bit, losing some of the moisture. Then we're going to eventually start stirring it to keep it going, keep it moving. And then once we come back, we'll have a little bit more of a runnier consistency, watery consistency. And then once we start getting it mixed in, we'll start adding in our sugar and our lemon juice as well. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back, and we'll show you that next step.
And first, before we pause for a minute, do you want to mention the canner? So this would be a good time for people to get that going.
I was just thinking that as well. So we do have our giant pot over here with our boiling water in it. We're going to be using 1/2 pint jars, so they're maybe about 5-6 inches tall. We're going to be putting them into the bottom of the canning pot. Biggest thing for that is you want to make sure the water is at least 1 inch, maybe even 2 inches sometimes over the top, just to make sure that they're fully submerged and that they'll seal properly once they're being boiled. So that's just the big thing with having our canning process over here.
And the thing that takes the longest about the canning is bringing that water up to a boil in that big old pot. So
yeah, a lot of water to be boiling.
Yeah. So start that even before you start pitting your cherries, and I should all line up time-wise.
Good call, very good call. But yeah, we'll be back in a second once this starts getting a little more cooked, and then we will add in our other ingredients. All right, we're back with our cherry jam. So let's take a look at it. We've been cooking it for about 10 minutes now, give or take. As you can see, we're starting to get a good rolling boil, kind of. It's starting to thicken up. Again, these cherries that we're using, they seem to be really juicy, so it's taking quite a bit to get all the water out of there. Yeah, we're definitely starting to thick up just like we want to. Another thing to think about, too, is using our cherry pitter. It seems like maybe some of them didn't get the pits all the way out. So while you're stirring and mixing your cherries, if you find a couple pits in there, just make sure you get those out so you don't accidentally leave them in there. But yeah, just another good tip to be aware of. But this is looking pretty good now. Again, we had it go for about 10 minutes. So I think we're about at the stage where we're going to add our next ingredient into it. So we'll bring it over here.
Oh, it smells good too.
Mm-hmm. So again, very simple recipe. All we're adding is sugar and lemon juice. So we'll squeeze and juice 1 lemon.
So you all, don't forget, all of our virtual workshops, we are also offering the gardening workshops on Sundays in person as well at our Badger Rock Community Market. So the market itself is from 2 to 6 every Sunday. Come on out to Badger Rock. Check it out. We'll have our youth-run farm stand where we're selling fresh produce, including cherries this week and last week from our trees.
Yep.
And then at 3 o'clock, there will be the in-person workshop. So we post on our social media too an Eventbrite sign up, so you can sign yourself up for those workshops.
Yep.
If you pop up and you didn't sign up, no one will be turned away. So come on in and join in. And Forrest will be here on Sunday at 3 teaching this workshop in person too.
Yep. So if you want to make some delicious jam and learn how to preserve it as well, come on over Sunday and come check out the farm stand as well. It'll be awesome, and I'll be here. But back to our recipe. So we just juiced 1 lemon. So we're just going to add our lemon juice in here as well. Again, adds a little more acidity and then just kind of helps preserve it a little bit as well. And then we're going to use 1 1/4 cup sugar. Let's see if we can get a whole cup out of this. About a cup, maybe a little less. Just a little more of this.
Ooh, look at it just soaking up that sugar.
About a full cup. And we'll do 1 more 1/4 cup as well. All right. Now we got our ingredients in. We'll put it back on the heat, and then we'll continue with our stirring as well. And we'll probably do about medium to high heat. We'll start stirring in those ingredients.
And y'all can see when the steam starts coming out the top of your canner, that is your hint that your water in there is boiling, and that's what you want.
There we go. We got our ingredients nice and mixed up. Let that bring it up a little more. Just let that simmer for a little bit longer. Again, trying to get a little bit more moisture out of it. But it's starting to thicken up a little bit. But we still have a lot of water left in there. You can see the dripping from my spoon. So just need to cook it down for a little while longer.
While it's cooking for us, do you want to talk about the canning and what people should keep in mind?
Yeah. So, again, if you're not going to be using your jam right away, if you do use it right away, it'll usually last about 3 to 4 weeks in the refrigerator. Just to keep that in mind. But if you're not going to use it right away and you want to keep it for longer, we can always do canning. So canning, we're just going to be using glass half-pint jars for ours. And then if you have brand new jars, they'll be ready to go right away. But if you're reusing jars, you just want to make sure that you sterilize them. So again, if you just want to put them in boiling water, boil them for about maybe 10 minutes or so. That'll help sterilize them. The lids too, if you haven't already done that, just make sure you sterilize the lids as well.
You should always use brand new lid inserts. You can reuse
the rings.
The rings.
Yep. You want to make sure you have new ones on that. And then basically you just want to have a little filling funnel, so you don't miss or get anything on the sides. You want to keep a nice clean sides on the rings so that you have a nice good seal. Because otherwise, if they don't seal well, then they won't be able to last, and it'll just be kind of for nothing. They won't seal very well. So once we get these filled up with our jam, use the funnel, we'll ladle our jam into it, get it nice and full, pretty much all the way to the very top. Not all the way, but you want to have a little bit of headroom at the top. And then once we seal it up, we'd have our big pot of boiling water, just using some clamps to make sure we don't get hot water on ourselves. And then we just place these into our big pot, making sure they're submerged at least about an inch or so over the top of them. And then we're going to cook these for about 10 minutes, I think. The half-pint jar, or 5 minutes.
Half pints only need 5 minutes for jam.
5 minutes.
But if you're doing a full pint, you'll need the full 10 minutes.
Full 10 minutes. Yeah. So small little jar, only about 5 minutes to be submerged. And then once they're out, you just Make sure you get them out with the clamp, avoiding all the hot water. And then naturally, they'll start to just pop on their own, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you hear the pop, then you'll know that they're sealed, and then they're ready to go.
And if you don't hear the pop, just eat it right away.
Exactly. Yep.
Ooh,
We'll
it's
check
going.
back in.
Wow, look at that. There it goes.
So yeah, you can see all the bubbles boiling off, all the water moisture. It's definitely starting to thicken up a little bit. So still got a little bit of time left for this to get to where we want it to be, the consistency we want it to be. But it's starting to look good though. We still got all the skins on the cherries, so you know it'll be nice and chunky. Unlike jelly, which is just no fruit, no actual fruit in it, mostly just fruit juice, if anything. Yeah, we're starting to get there.
Yeah. And for demonstration purposes, just so you all don't have to sit here and watch our jam boil,
Yep.
we can show the canning process so that you can see that piece and how it's done. And we'll pop them in the canner, and then and then we'll put the recipe in the comments too, and y'all can try it at home and let us know how it turned out.
Perfect. We'll see you in a little bit. All right. So we're back with our cherry jam again. As you can see, it's starting to get thicker now. Getting a little bit less water in our drip. So again, we want it to be a nice consistency. And you make sure you want to keep stirring it as well because you don't want any of the sugar to be burning on the bottom. So constantly stirring it. And then we're going to go just by how it looks today. But if you really want to make sure it's up to the right temperature for jam making, you can always get a candy thermometer to add into here. And then from there, you're just looking for about 220 to 225 degrees Fahrenheit is what you're aiming for. But for our sake, we're just going to go by how it looks. And we're thinking this looks just about good right now. So we're going to take it off the heat. Bring it over. So you can see it's starting to get a little bit thicker now.
Oh, it smells so
It
good.
smells delicious right now.
Mm-mm. If you want a sample of this jam, come to the market.
Come
Our
on
youth
over
employees
Sunday.
will be having this out for tasting with a recipe.
Oh yeah. All right, so now we can go straight into canning as well. So again, just making sure we have our sterilized or brand new jars, brand new lids, and then just making sure our rings are sterilized too if you're using old ones as well. So we're just gonna grab our little funnel, make sure it's in there nice and tight. Come over with our recipe. We'll just spoon it in there.
You only want to put it up to the bottom of those threads on your jar so that the headroom, otherwise your jar could explode on you.
Yep. You don't want that. Just about there. That look good? That looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do that amount. 16. Alright, I'll get this one ready as well. Might as well fill up the other one while we're at it. Get this one as well. This next one.
Oh, it looks delicious.
Yep. And this one might not fill up all the way with our jam. So in this case, we probably won't can this one just because otherwise it won't seal. So this will be one we can enjoy right away. Well, once it cools, of course, and we can enjoy this one right away. That's most of it. Take this out. Sorry. So again, we're going to use this one to actually can. It's just below. We filled it just below the threads on the sides of the ring, where the rings go. And so then we just want to make sure, pop our seals on. Oh, hold on. I got a piece of paper towel. We can wipe the edges off as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just want to make sure there's nothing on the outsides of the jar that can mess with the seal at all. Making sure it's nice and clean. We'll pop our lids on. A little bit of a press. Nice and tight. We'll pop our ring on. For the rings, you don't need to tighten them as hard as you can. Just nice and tight, just so there's well on there. Hand tight, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have our jar of jam ready to go into our canner. This one we'll just seal up, and we can use this for the next couple weeks. Again, as long as you just keep it in the refrigerator, it'll last for about 3 to 4 weeks. There's ours. So now we're going to go over the canning process. Again, we have our boiling pot of water over here with enough water so that it goes over at least an inch or so. And then get a pot. Oh, the light came back on. Make sure this is good. Just grabbing our jar, bring it over to our canner, lightly. Yep. And our water seems to be about an inch over the top, just like we want it. And so we're just going to leave this to boil, cook for about 5 minutes. Yep, for a half pint jar, 5 minutes. If you have a full pint, about 10 minutes. And then after that, we'll just take it out. I think we usually flip them over. Sometimes.
You can just pop it on a
right
cloth. You want to make sure you have like a towel or something on your surface so that when you take it out, you don't put it on a cold counter because that can make your jar explode too.
Yep. Cold and hot don't always mix very well.
Yep. And also make sure that your canner, before you start your timer, make sure the water's back up to a full boil in your canner.
You want to make sure we put top back on.
And the top's back on so that water doesn't evaporate all the way.
Yep.
And then once it's at a full boil, pop that timer on, pull it out. You can stick it on a counter until you hear that seal go. And if it doesn't do that, this little poppy thing. Yep.
Yep, that's what you want to hear.
And you want to hear that going down. And once
down.
It's canned, it's not going to come back up.
Yep.
If it does come back up, it's not canned. Put it in your refrigerator and eat it.
Yep, and enjoy.
Yes.
So that's our canning method for our jam. Again, just extending the shelf life of our jam up to about 18 months. And then our other, just kind of briefly going over our other methods. So we went over the freezing. So just pitting our cherries, pop them on a tray, pop them in the freezer. And then once they're frozen, then you can pop them into a bag to save space. Another method I forgot to mention, but is very, very efficient as well, is once your cherries are pitted, if you have one of these fancy machines, a dehydrator is very easy to use. All you do is pop the top off. We have all of our sections, and all you do is just pop your cherries into here, pitted of course, pop your lid back on. And this one, it's not plugged in, but easy enough. It just has a fruit and vegetable setting, 135 degrees. You just push that, push start, and just let them do their thing. Again, just taking out all the moisture, extending their life, and then you just have a nice little snack you can have. Or dried cherries then. Very good way of preserving, extending the life, and just having a delicious treat as always.
Enjoy some cherries in the winter.
Cherries in the winter.
Thank you so much, Forrest. Super awesome and informative workshop. And you all stay tuned every Sunday. We'll have garden workshops at 1 p.m. virtually and 3 p.m. in person here at Badger Rock.
Yep.
So don't miss them. And we will see y'all next time.